The U.S. and Canada worked together to shoot down 3 mysterious objects spotted just in the last few days.
Okay, we still don't know what any of these objects are.
The NSC spokesperson John Kirby, the object was roughly the size of a small car and was flying low enough that it posed a threat to civilian flight.
We don't yet know exactly what these 3 objects were, but nothing right now suggests they were related to China's spy balloon program or that they were surveillance vehicles from any other country.
February 2023. North American air defenses go into a level of alert we haven't seen in decades. 3 objects were shot down over North America in 3 days. Politicians and the military alike would emphasize that these were not drones, not balloons, just objects.
Well, I'm not going to categorize them as balloons. We're calling them objects for a reason.
Have you ruled out aliens or extraterrestrials?
I haven't ruled out anything at this point. We continue to assess every threat or potential threat unknown that approaches North America with the attempt to identify it.
Unlike the massive Chinese surveillance balloon that was shot down over the US a week earlier, these 3 had no public videos released, no photos released, no debris presented to the public, and no clear explanation. Tonight we go deep. What were these craft? Why did the narrative change so quickly? And why, even now, does almost nothing about these shootdowns make sense?
Lock your doors tonight.
My previous video covered the quote, mystery drone swarms evident around the world, especially since 2019. However, the media has seemingly forgotten about 3 unknown objects that were breaching American and Canadian airspace as recently as 2023.
We begin tonight with the breaking headline late today. The Pentagon briefing reporters just before we came on the air, saying they are now tracking a suspected Chinese spy balloon hovering over the northern U.S. It was spotted over Montana and other northern states. Montana, of course, home to several sensitive nuclear sites.
Before we look at these fascinating objects, let's first look at the Chinese spy balloon that was shot down off the coast of South Carolina on February 4th, 2023. After watching it drift over the continental US for days, the United States would eventually shoot down a confirmed 200-foot Chinese surveillance balloon into the ocean off the coast of South Carolina. We've got news organizations and civilians following this object for days. We would also recover the debris from this object, and both the United States and Chinese governments would eventually confirm that this was exactly what it was, a surveillance balloon from China. This event would apparently force NORAD to retune their radar systems.
Let's go ahead and listen.
Last week, in the immediate aftermath of the incursion by China's high-altitude balloon, our military, through the North American Aerospace Defense Command, so-called NORAD, closely scrutinized our airspace, including enhancing our radar.
And what would happen next was unlike anything in modern North American air defense history.
Today, under President Biden's order, a U.S. fighter pilot shot down an unidentified unmanned object the size of a small car.
We're calling this an object because that's the best description we have right now.
That the pilots were able to see it, that it wasn't the same shape or size as the balloon. Can you say definitively it was not a balloon?
I don't, at this point, considering the fact that we're still assessing the object, I don't want to get into characterizing it, so just leave it at that.
The U.S. defense officials sent F-35 fighter jets up to try to figure out what this object was that was flying around near Alaska. Those pilots, we have learned, have given very conflicting accounts of what they actually experienced, with some pilots saying that the object interfered with the plane's sensors, other pilots saying that they didn't really experience that, other pilots saying that when they looked at the object they could identify no identifiable propulsion system, and they did not know how it was actually staying in the air cruising at that altitude.
February 10th, just 6 days after the Chinese balloon is destroyed, NORAD picks up something over the Beaufort Sea near Alaska. When the pilots intercept the craft, what they describe is strange. According to Pentagon officials, the object was about the size of a small car, no visible cockpit, no visible propulsion, and no wings. Most importantly, it was not immediately or later identified as a balloon.
We're calling this an object because that's the best description we have right now.
We're still assessing what this object was, so.
When the pilots approached it, and they determined, I understand, that it was not manned. How did they determine that? And at that point, wouldn't it be possible to at least describe what they were looking at? Did it resemble a balloon or an airplane or what?
Again, we'll know more and have more information once we've recovered this.
An F-22 jet would fire a single AIM-9X Sidewinder missile. The craft is reportedly destroyed into pieces. The search for the object would then begin, according to officials. Quote, "The object was shot down off the coast of northeastern Alaska over frozen U.S. territorial waters near the Canadian border. Officials said it would be far easier to retrieve the pieces of the object from the ice than it was with the Chinese balloon, pieces of which sunk into the ocean when it was shot down." End quote. However, the government would later state that we would never find this object because of terrible weather conditions. However, let's check with a YouTuber confirmed to have lived in the area at the time.
Updates, and here comes a Blackhawk. They're definitely not doing whatever they're done doing, covering the UFO or whatever it is that shot down out there, China or Russia, whoever. Damn, I'm gonna be kind of far away for this, but there goes the Blackhawk. All right, guys, live update. 9:46 a.m. C-130 just took off. Right off of Dead Horse Airport, it looks like. Flew right over the top of me. Definitely a military C-130. Flew directly out over the ice in the same direction all this activity's been going on, so there's definitely still stuff going on. Don't know what they're doing, but I'm going to put a little clip in here. Okay, live above Prudhoe Bay. What the fuck is going on around here, dude? Look at that shit. There is some crazy crap going on around here.
This video was uploaded during the search and recovery period. As we can clearly see, the weather is totally fine and clear. We also see ominous black helicopters patrolling the area. So was the weather horrendous like reported by the government or what? On top of that, this YouTuber's entire channel was deleted right after these were posted. The reason given was supposedly because they were bringing unwanted attention to their workplace, but seems very suspicious to me. Another thing we have to consider, supposedly there was a leaked picture of the object that surfaced on the internet the day after the object was shot down. If we remember the initial description, size of a small car, no wings, no cockpit, no obvious propulsion, it does fit.
Abundance now of sources, including a guy who literally lives at the end of the road in Alaska where this object was encountered by an F-22 jet. There was definitely a missile fired at an object which was described as looking a little bit like a giant tic-tac, funnily enough, that something was seen to fall off that object, but even though it was hit with an AIM missile, which is the top of the line air missile, the object kept on going. And I've put this to different people in defense and intelligence, and I've been told that yes, the Alaska object was anomalous.
This object in its description looked like the famous Tic Tac described in the highly credible Nimitz encounter off the coast of California in 2004. Former Navy Commander David Fravor and Lieutenant Commander Alex Dietrich chased a similar looking object in jets, where it outpaced their jets and disappeared, reappearing 60 miles away in an instant. This was captured on video, radar, seen and chased by pilots. Listen to their description on CBS News. Again, white Tic Tac object, about the size of an FA-18 jet, with no markings, no wings, and no exhaust plumes. Sounds very similar to me. And again, no debris recovery with this object. Emphasis on object. However, in a potential slip-up, Ryder will briefly state that this was an aircraft, before hesitating and again renaming it an object. Perhaps a slip of the tongue?
However, given the fact that this aircraft was, this object was operating at an altitude that posed a reasonable threat.
This object was certainly odd, and we would get confirmation about what the government actually thought about this thing in a little bit. For now, let's move on to the second object, the one that was shot down over the Yukon region, Canada.
We have a breaking news update now. The U.S. military has shut down another unidentified object today over northern Canada. It took place over the Yukon through NORAD, which is a joint U.S. and Canadian military command. U.S. officials still say they do not know who owns the object that was shot down yesterday over Alaska.
Further details about the object at this time, other than it appears to be a small cylindrical object. Let me assure all Canadians that Canadians are safe. There is no reason to believe that the impact of the object in Canadian territory is of any public concern. It would not be prudent for me to speculate on the origins of the object at this time.
This object would appear the very next day, February 11th, when another radar track appeared. Canadian officials would initially describe it as cylindrical, a shape that doesn't really match typical weather balloons. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau would outright state that this object needed to be taken down. So an F-22 would take the shot, and there's a confirmed shoot down. The Chinese spy balloon would instantly have images, videos, you name it. Well, after more than a year, we finally would get an image from Canada on this subject. These were dug up with Freedom of Information requests, not necessarily released from Canada. If we look at this object, it's got a pretty apparent horseshoe shape. Not great imaging, grainy. I'm sure that they have HD footage and images on a server somewhere that we probably won't get to see. If we're just looking at the shape, it looks almost like this UFO over Busan, South Korea. This video was first found online on YouTube in 2012, and it's kind of a fascinating classic in my opinion. Further confirmation that this was something odd comes from this leaked Canadian memo. We've also got a tie-in to our friend, the Alaskan Object. Notice anything? That's right, the object was described as UAP number 23, not balloon 23. Then we noticed our Alaskan friend down below is described as UAP 20. Quote, Object 23's function, method of propulsion, or affiliation to any nation state remains unverified. It is unknown whether it possesses an armed threat or has intelligence collection capabilities. The full exploitation of UAP number 20 engaged by the US on February 10th, 2023 has not yet been completed. A couple questions off this document alone. What does the full exploitation of UAP number 20 mean? What kind of things are they gleaning from it? What is happening with that object? The other obvious question, if these are UAP number 20 and 23, where's the rest of UAP's numbers 1 through 23? This, of course, doesn't confirm that this object is flown by non-human intelligence, but it does show that the object was taken seriously and not instantly recognized or categorized as a balloon by our advanced tech. The object would eventually be given this description: a silver metallic top, a white cylindrical body, and a long cable hanging below with potentially a small payload. It's very important to note that the original image that we were given for the description of this object was actually declassified by Canadian officials 3 days after the event, but internal emails from Canada's Department of National Defence reveals this exchange. Quote, should the image be released, it would be via the Canadian Armed Forces social media accounts. Given the current public environment and statements related to the object being benign, releasing the image may create more questions and confusion regardless of the text that will accompany the post, end quote. Seems like they thought the object looked odd too. Just like Alaska, the Canadian military would call off the search. Harsh terrain, freezing temperature, deep snow were the reasons given. Not a single confirmed piece of the object is ever found. You'd think this would be top priority if objects were getting shot down over American airspace and we couldn't even confirm what they are. But we move on.
Welcome back. We're following some breaking news. New information just in on a possible new object spotted in the skies over Michigan. NBC's Julie Sirkin is with us from Capitol Hill. I understand, Julie, Representative Elise Slotkin tweeted about a call that she just got from the Department of Defense. What do you know?
Yeah, Alyssa Slotkin, the representative from Michigan, tweeted a couple minutes ago that she got a call from the Department of Defense saying that our military has an extremely close eye on the object above Lake Huron. We'll know more about what this was in the coming days, but for now, be assured that all parties have been laser focused on it from the moment it traversed our waters.
News. U.S. officials confirming a short time ago that an unidentified object was shot down by U.S. military over Lake Huron. It is just the latest incident over the skies of North America in recent days, and the second one today that has caused confusion and panic.
My understanding is that the top officials at the Pentagon, when asked explicitly if they were ruling out any kind of extraterrestrial presence, said they weren't ruling anything out, and yet at the beginning of today's briefing, albeit with her usual winning smile, Ms. Jean-Pierre seemed to rule out any extraterrestrial activity.
I don't think the American people need to worry about aliens with respect to these craft, period.
Still with object, or can we call them balloons?
Still with object. And I won't mess that up today.
Admiral, I just wanted to make sure we address this from the White House. I know there have been questions and concerns about this, but there is no indication of aliens or extraterrestrial activity. With these recent takedowns, again, there is no indication of aliens or terrestrial activity with these recent takedowns.
The third day in a row, on February 12th, another object is spotted hovering over North American airspace. After UAP 20 and 23, I'm curious what number this is individually categorized as. This time, officials describe the object as octagonal, with potential strings or things hanging below and floating at approximately 20,000 feet. Let's listen to leaked F-16 pilot audio as he tries to describe the object.
Definitely looks like something, there's some kind of object that's suspended in the air. It's hard to tell. It's pretty small. I cannot see it outside of my eyes. 1-1 in the targeting pod. You can see something. I can't tell if it's metallic or what. And there's, I can see like lines coming down below, but I can't see anything below it. 1-1. Looking outside is kind of like a blackish. I'm going to call it like a container. I can't really tell though what the shape is. It's just so slow and so small, and you can't see it until you're so close. I'd honestly be worried about hitting it before you knowing it was there. It's almost like a octagonous shape. I'm going to call it a balloon. You can definitely see strings hanging down below, but I don't see anything below it. It's pretty small. I don't know, size of like a four-wheeler or something.
The initial description reminds me somewhat of the infamous jellyfish UAP video, as we see here. There are things hanging down from below the object. We're not sure if there's a payload there. It's just an ominous looking thing. Kind of reminds me of the pilot struggling to describe what he's looking at. We also hear from General Mark Miley that the first missile shot at the object would actually miss it. These missiles are very expensive, by the way. According to the website Defense Express, these missiles could cost close to $400,000 each missile. The first missile would reportedly fall harmlessly, unless you're a fish, into Lake Huron. Reportedly, the debris would sink to the bottom of the deep Lake Huron on the Canadian side. Stop me if you've heard this story before. A search occurred for the debris. Nothing was found. You're telling me with our technology, we just happened to go 0 for 3 in getting any debris? To me, this is extremely unlikely. However, luckily for us, debris would supposedly be secretly recovered a mere 3 weeks later. Of course, this information wouldn't be released at the time. I want to emphasize the word supposedly. Let's look at another leaked secret document from the Canadian government. Quote, "Debris was recovered last week. reported, I believe, through CAF comms line, and the RCMP, or Royal Canadian Mounted Police, now has possession of it. I understand there is both material and a module. The module is from a company who sells weather monitoring equipment. It will be analyzed to determine if there is anything unusual with it, but I suspect not given the size. Whether or not this is from the shoot down is uncertain, end quote. Certainly a neat way for the media to stop reporting on this object as something anomalous, just by stating that they might have found debris and it was a weather balloon, but we're not even sure if that was the same object that was shot down. We obviously aren't given confirmation later. As we can see from farther down in the file, we're getting images, and it's just so nostalgic to me that we are back to the classic weather balloon reasoning. If this object is a balloon, you're missing your shot with a missile? If it is the Illinois Bottle Cap Balloon Brigade, we couldn't assess that with our tech before we spent nearly $800,000 in missiles to shoot it down? After all this, based on description, I do believe out of the three, this one is most likely to be something standard, while the Alaskan object seems the most anomalous. Together we have a car-sized object, a silver cylinder that's horseshoe-shaped, and an octagonal craft. These are not descriptions consistent with stray party balloons. Of course, these incidents, in rapid succession from the Chinese spy balloon incident, would cause the media to go into a frenzy. The next day, February 13th, Pentagon official John Kirby would be forced to give a press conference with some dodgy answers, of course.
Because it's so unprecedented, should the public be hearing from the president directly on this?
We have been, I think, as transparent as we can be. I won't speak for the president's personal speaking schedule.
Can you tell us anything more about this octagonal object? How big was it?
We're still trying to assess what that was.
Let's listen to Air Force General Glenn Van Herk on February 13th, describing these objects.
Well, I'm not going to categorize them as balloons. We're calling them objects for a reason. Certainly the event off the South Carolina coast for the Chinese spy balloon, that was clearly a balloon. These are objects. I am not able to categorize how they stay aloft. It could be a gaseous type of balloon inside a structure, or it could be some type of a propulsion system. But clearly, they're able to stay aloft. I would be hesitant to and urge you not to attribute it to any specific country. We don't know. That's why it's so critical to get our hands on these so that we can further assess and analyze what they are.
Have you ruled out aliens or extraterrestrials?
I haven't ruled out anything at this point. We continue to assess every threat or potential threat unknown that approaches North America with the attempt to identify it.
This is the Air Force definitively saying that these objects were categorized as something else on purpose, not as balloons. Now let's listen to Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana after getting a classified briefing about UFOs and UAP on February 14th.
Going into the last two hearings, I had the impression that this was something that had happened over the last 2 weeks, and that's not accurate. This has been going on a long time.
Did they give an explanation as to why they're shooting them down now? Why
Nope,
they're deciding?
they did not.
Yeah, some are saying that it's a wagging of the dog to improve approval ratings.
I don't care to speculate on that. I just know that we need some more transparency. I understand the need for national security secrets, but now that this cow is out of the barn, the president and the director of national intelligence needs to address it. They need to explain to the American people, if they know, and I'm not sure they know, if they know they're not telling us, what these things are, who put them up there, and do they pose a threat to the American people? And if the answer is no, how do they know that?
Again, clear separation from Chinese spy balloon to these objects. It's been going on a long time. How do we know if it's a threat if we can't identify it? That's a great question, Mr. Kennedy. He also ends with,
Lock your doors tonight.
that's pretty ominous. But then the narrative shifts. President Biden is forced to give an update on February 16th. President Biden would say that the intelligence community believes that the objects were, quote, Most likely balloons from private companies or research institutions. That really doesn't align with what military and politicians were saying a few days ago. A quick summary. We couldn't identify these objects, and still we shot them down. We were given vague descriptions, leaked information, but none of the debris from these objects was ever recovered? None of these objects were filmed during intercepts, despite every F-22 and F-16 carrying high-definition targeting pods? How can you confidently say what something was when you never recovered it? Also, when we get the phrase, "this was not a threat," this is another thing that consistently comes up with classic UFO reports, modern drone sightings, and now these objects. So we don't know what they were, we know that they weren't a threat. That doesn't really jive with me. So what were they? More foreign surveillance craft that just looked way different than the Chinese balloon and weren't identified? Unknown drones, which we've seen incursions in the last couple years here? Or something else entirely? The truth is simple, we don't know. The government says that they don't know, but I don't really think I believe them. The shapes and descriptions that we were given from each object, the extra evidence we found, and the odd commentary from military and politicians alike makes me believe that at least one of these objects was anomalous. 3 days, 3 objects, 3 shootdowns, no answers. Thanks again to everybody for watching this channel, for liking the videos, for subscribing, commenting. I really appreciate the support, trying to build a community where we can talk about these cases without stigma. If you have something you want me to cover or anything I missed about this topic, please comment down below. Also comment down below on what you think these objects were. Until next time, stay curious.